Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Wala Tan, and I am honored to be your host for this executive session. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch at home. Now, let us get back to business and get started with today's session. I'm sure you're all looking forward to the presentations of our guest speakers. The things they will be sharing with us today will certainly come in handy as you create your strategies in strengthening cybersecurity. The first in our roster of speakers is from Globe Business. Globe has been a reliable partner of many organizations in providing quality solutions against cyber attacks. In planning a strategy to defeat cyber attacks, it is very important to know your enemies. To guide us on how to understand the adversaries in cyberspace is the Senior Vice President for Enterprise Group of Globe Telecom, Mr. Peter Maquera.
A better future is built by the brave, envisioned by brilliant minds, born from the passions of thousands strong. One that isn't without risk, but protected from it. Safe from all the worries and secure for what's to come. Because a better future with the greatest empires, the strongest communities, and the happiest families will always be worth having. That's why the bold and the fearless understand that recreating something better takes courage and strength. So together, let's start shaping a better future today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Peter Maquera with Globe Business. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. I'll be speaking about understanding your cybersecurity adversaries. If you give me a moment, I will now share my screen. Let me start off with this slide, hopefully to get your attention. This is causing great concern for us. Launching a cybersecurity attack is easier now more than ever. What we're seeing is actually a budding ecosystem in the dark web, if you could call it cybersecurity as a service. So now increasingly, you can actually get apps or a lot of support, whether you want to do denial of service, you want to do ransomware, you want to have a phishing kit, you want to go after credit cards, you want to propagate malware. There's a budding ecosystem of getting support for you to learn all of these things so that even the most unsophisticated criminals can get support to do cybersecurity attacks. There's also an ecosystem for the distribution, whether you want to propagate your cybersecurity attacks through social networking, through email, through spamming, and even an aggregator so that you can more specifically target your audience. And then the monetization piece is also being quite broad. You can have a mule to collect the money. You can get support on how you go about extorting the ransomware. You can get support in knowing how to get paid through cryptocurrency. So what we see here is the increasing potential of a flywheel effect. So the more successful the criminals are, the more support there is, the more innovation is on the platform. You even have syndicates funding these criminals. So this is something that we're keeping a close eye on, and it's a really of concern in the community. Just to go some brief examples of what we've seen globally, and the main message here is that cybersecurity, the criminals are getting much more sophisticated. The attacks and the outcomes are becoming much more systemic. So an example here, in November 2020, the University of Vermont Medical Center cybersecurity attack shut down There are alerts tied to patient monitors tracking vital signs. The chemotherapy patients had their treatments delayed. In December 2020, there was a lot of news on solar winds. And the reason is, and I talked about the systemic nature of these attacks. Solar winds is commonly used in the supply chain of the IT networks of government and the private sector. So this can destroy or alter data and impersonate legitimate people. We heard about the Colonial Pipeline situation in May 2020 that shut down the fuel lines in the eastern seaboard of the United States. That had far-reaching implications. I personally was taken aback at how far-reaching it was. That there was a Texas freeze, and people didn't have heating, and some people died. In as far as California, the price at the fuel pumps for gas were much higher, and even airfares across the country were affected. In June 2021, there was an attack on the JBS meat processing company. This disrupted meat processing across North America and Australia for nearly an entire week. And then most recently, in July of 2021, the Cassia situation, again, another very popular IT platform used by many companies. It shut down a Swedish supermarket chain with over 800 physical stores. And it also shut down and impacted over 1,500 companies in that ecosystem. So what are some of the reasons driving this increasing levels of cybersecurity attacks? A big one, of course, is the increasing shift to the cloud. There's a lot of benefits to this in terms of, for companies, in terms of agility, faster time to market, being omni-channel so that they can serve their customers better, and the employees can be more productive. So cloud is increasing, is projected to increase 18.1% CAGR, compounded annual growth from 2021 to 2028. So that's the good side of the ledger, but the negative side of the ledger is that totally changes the threat landscape of the company. So the more, if you're now outside of the perimeter of your traditional network that you were protecting the perimeter, now your systems are outside of that perimeter, and there are many more ways that you can be breached. So a lot of the threats that arise include the misconfiguration of the cloud platform and the wrong setup. So what's happening in cybersecurity is there's such a huge demand for it, but there's also a shortage for talent. So a lot of times you might not have the right expertise when you deploy your cloud. Or a lot of times the staff will use the default configurations as opposed to thinking specifically about every aspect of what you need to protect in your ecosystem. Huge risk around the exfiltration of sensitive data. So this is data theft, unauthorized access, insecure interfaces and APIs, because typically not everything is cloud native. You still have legacy systems and you need to API to your vendors. External sharing of data, hijacking of accounts, and even malicious insiders. Sometimes they don't even have to be malicious. They could be just employees not trained and not educated on the importance of cybersecurity. But that's not all. We're in the middle of a prolonged pandemic. So are we ready for the next great disruption? And here I'm talking about hybrid work, also known as work from home, work from anywhere, work in pods, work in microsites. So increasingly here now the employees are outside of the perimeter. So some of the issues that are driving this, it's obviously it's worked. You hear a lot of data points where it's been beneficial. Companies are more productive, they have more flexibility, their mental health is better. And we think this is actually going to have some permanency, and it's here to stay. Maybe not 100% but with some permanency. Some surveys, 46% of the workforce are actually planning to move, looking for other jobs in situations where they can work remotely. There's been a 5x increase in job postings in LinkedIn for opportunities in remote work. And then this flexibility has created 148% more in terms of people doing Zoom meetings, and emails and chats are also, have risen significantly. So here is another driver of the changing threat landscape. So some of the concerns, this is a survey with Cybersecurity Insiders. A big concern is actually how you deal with and how you set up the endpoints where the employees are going to be working. How do you educate the people? How do you make sure that those devices are managed? 55% of the time, the employees are given access for convenience, to the system, but they're unmanaged from a cybersecurity perspective. So here companies have to be mindful about striking the right balance of, convenience and ease of use and productivity. But on the other side is making sure that, the systems are secure and the employees themselves are secure. So some of the threat vectors that work from anywhere is exposing significantly around phishing. Here, this could be emails. This could be on social media. This could be text. We're seeing fraudulent one-time PIN texts a lot nowadays. Malware, and then again, as the threat landscape changes, you need to continuously patch your systems for new vulnerability areas, and then on the bottom right here, the other threat vectors are unauthorized users. So you just can't trust anyone nowadays, and you need to be mindful about identity access management, access rights to the different systems. There's malicious websites, and again, stealing of identity. So unfortunately, no one is immune. The attacks are across industries. Here on the top left, this is a study done, I believe, by Fortinet. The ransomware detections on devices, and it's increased 10.7 times just in the last year alone. The most heavily hit sectors and vulnerable sectors are the telcos, the government, managed security services providers. And so I talked about, the nature of the threats have become broader and more systemic. I think this confirms that. The telcos, like for instance, Globe, we have over 80 million consumer mobile customers, 4 million households at home, and over 100,000 customers in business. We have so much data, both on the voice, on the data, how people use their phones. So we're a perfect target, whether you're a nation state. In fact, we have a significant percentage of nation states attempting to breach our systems, whether it's identity theft or perhaps even just fake news or influencing elections. So we're a prime target because we can be a way to propagate systemic damage. Same with government. Everybody has to register with the government with your social security number, your tax ID number, and then here the threats could be very damaging because it can also impact critical national infrastructure. And then MSSPs, managed security services providers, similar to SolarWinds and Cassia, right? So you have a lot of customers, you're an aggregator of information, and the MSSP being attacked can attack many others that are sharing that platform. So the spending is increasing in cybersecurity here on the right, millions of dollars from 2019, 2021. So you see the big spends, the biggest ones would be around data security, application security, identity access management. So we have a running joke in Globe that during the budget time, which we're actually going through right now, the chief information security officer can ask for the moon and the stars, and we'll get a lot of support because as a company with 80 million users and 100,000 on the consumer side and 100,000 on the business side, it's really the value of our brand and the trust that we that creates the value in our business and is critical to our business. So that is when we think about ROI, we're thinking about the preserving trust with our customers. So lasering in on the region and later on in the Philippines, this is a significant threat all across ASEAN. So some surveys here, on the left in terms of ransomware detection. Ransomware specifically is the one that keeps us up at night because it really just stops your operations dead in the water. On the left, Indonesia actually has the most detected threats, followed by Vietnam, Thailand, and the Philippines ranks fourth. So of course, we're in the top of among the top in the leaderboard. So spending and cybersecurity in the Philippines is also growing quite strongly at 19%. Looks like we're third. In terms of threats, in terms of the web, here again you have fake websites, or you have fake links a lot of times in the things like Facebook and Instagram. So 44.2% of the is a pretty high number, and we rank 6 in the Philippines. Just tracking ransomware across the Philippines weekly, very, very active. You'll see here from 200 to 600 every week. So hopefully that doesn't increase, although that is quite a bit. In terms of some specific attacks in the Philippines, we first, that one of the early ones is 2016, where personal information of 55 million Filipino voters were stolen during the elections. In 2019, 20,000 personal details of the military database was exposed. And in April 2021, this is a more large-scale leak affecting over 506 million users. 900,000 of those were Filipino users. In terms of Globe and our own, I talked about earlier why telco is such a prime target. It's really just the scale of our interactions and how many people and companies that we can influence. Globe on our networks, we think the attempted breaches, of course most of them are caught, are up to 1 million a month. Of course we don't investigate all of them because most of the time we're able to protect ourselves, but the more serious ones maybe are over 5,000 in a month. And so you can imagine, I believe today in the Philippines, we have the largest cybersecurity operating platform. So it's a 24/7. The team there considers their job, it's certainly not compliance, it's warfare. In fact, you assume that you will get breached. And it's really when they get into, when they have that breach, what do you do? So a huge priority for Globe. And we're seeing, fortunately and unfortunately and fortunately, because more and more attacks are happening, and especially because ransomware, I've been involved in a number of them with some customers here, and it really does. It's probably the one that keeps most CISOs up at night. So we're seeing a huge growth in spending on cloud security, endpoint security monitoring. I talked earlier about the lack of, or the difficulty in finding appropriate skills. So managed security is up there. We ourselves are building, of course, we have a large one for ourselves. And because it's so important for our customers, we've also been, we've built managed security platform for our customers in partnership with SecureWorks, a US-based company who is ranked as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for managed security services. So the growth can be attributed to, I'm here on the right, we're seeing a lot of incident management and response types of demand. We're seeing a lot of demand from the financial sector, again, because they're continuing to architect omni-channel ways to reach their customers. So their customers, it's easier for them to do business with the company. And we're seeing a lot of activity in the manufacturing sector. So some of the key frameworks that everybody should be aware of, and it's really important, is zero trust. Here, you just do not trust anyone or any device. So each person or device you need to verify, and then you need to give, you need to be able to identify, and you need to be able to give access rights to the applications that they're allowed. So SASE, so security at the edge. So the trend is to get further and further out, as far out as to the endpoint, as opposed to just protecting your own perimeter, just being, again, further out to the edge of where your exposures might be. And then increasingly consulting services, because it's just so difficult for any one company actually to cover all of these areas. I remember perhaps 4 or 5 years ago when we were starting our own operations, we had 32 or so different threat vectors that we were trying to track. And at that time, even the industry was fairly new. We're trying to rationalize, because as the industry evolves, as companies grow, you start seeing overlaps in terms of the areas of threat vectors. So maybe on the side, you guys can send me a note if you're interested in some of the partners that we've chosen, depending on the threat vector. So I'll end with this. I hope just some key takeaways that you walk away with from this presentation. It's really easy now for cybersecurity, for criminals to affect cybersecurity. There's a whole ecosystem to support these criminals. We're seeing a flywheel effect, a lot of innovation, a lot of very sophisticated attacks, syndicates funding, even the small-time criminals. So you get this flywheel effect in the dark web, and potentially you'll see this. There's this increasing convergence of nation states and these criminals because they've seen how successful they can be. They've seen the commercial benefits. They've seen the just the systemic implications that you can really propagate. So I think you're going to see more of this, and this trend will continue. So companies really need to think about it, not just as compliance, but really deeply embedded in their operations, not just in a technology sense, but also in educating every single person in the company, regardless, just every single person, not just limited to the IT department. Zero trust policy. Don't trust anything or anyone. Make sure you have visibility to the your entire threat landscape, no matter how small. I pointed out some examples that the vulnerabilities were actually in the ecosystem, not actually in the company itself. So you have to be mindful about that. The third item here is to, continue to stay abreast. Use consultants, use experts. If you can't find your internal staff, to continue to stay abreast of what's happening and the trends and what the best practices are. What to keep in mind about cybersecurity is it's not local in nature, because we're all now increasingly interconnected because of the internet, because of digital, just because of the convenience. A lot of the threats tend to be global in nature, and what you're affected by here in the Philippines could have actually started somewhere else in China and Eastern Europe or whatever. And again, think about the whole ecosystem. Think about, how you API with your vendors. Think about how you manage the devices of your employees or anyone that accesses your system. Balancing convenience with risk management. So everyone, I hope that was really helpful and you learned some insights. We're of course available to speak to you on the side, and I think I'll actually see you later in the panel. I hope it was helpful for you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you very much.